What's up, guys? Welcome to the Couple Nurses Podcast with your host, Matt Chartrick, and myself, Peter Findera. This is a podcast where we tackle current health news and hot nursing topics, one conversation at a time. Thank you guys for tuning in to this Couple News episode. Thank you guys for listening every Friday. Make sure you check out us on YouTube. We got a bunch of cool vlogs. If you guys want to see our faces for the podcast, there's a face to this voice. We look pretty good. We look pretty cool. If you guys want to check us out on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you guys give us a rating on Spotify. Make sure you guys give us a rating on Apple. We want ratings everywhere. And guys, we got a nice Patreon that's already out. That's moving along nicely. Already got some subs. You guys should for sure check it out. We have some cool unfiltered content there just because, some of our episodes did get deleted from Spotify. I'm not saying we have all like conspiracy stuff on there, but we have a lot of nursing based stuff there. We have like little nursing dialogue we do on our way back from our shift. And we also have some cool unfiltered stuff like I mentioned before. So what's happening, Matt?
Patreon's tight, man. Definitely recommend you guys checking it out. And hopefully you guys like the guests that we have on the show that we're bringing on. We're wrapping that back up. So this year we're expected to have a lot more guests than in 2020. So stay tuned for that ride. If you guys want any specific topics that we want to, cover, discuss, or guests, hit us up on Instagram or email us at info@couplenurses and we'll get that situated. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the U.S. life expectancy and the reduction due to COVID-19, some ICU capacity talk, and the Robinhood and GME situation. And we saved the Robinhood GME situation for the end because, as you know, we always love to chat about that and go hardcore, and we're passionate about it. So we'll go into the sciencey stuff first.
Yeah, so that's kind of sad to hear that life expectancy has been decreasing. And this is a study that we looked at among Black people and Latino populations. They're supposed to be taking the hardest hit out of everybody else during this whole COVID-19 pandemic going on.
Yeah,
like the years of like life expectancy for these populations or these minorities, majority, whatever you want to call them, it's going to be decreased by like 2 to 3 years, man. That's a lot. If you think about it, like you could do a lot in 2 to 3 years, and then just because. One thing is the life expectancy does decrease, but also you're gonna have an increase of like comorbidities. You're gonna have a lower quality of life.
Yeah.
Going up into those years, right? You're not only taking away like anywhere from between 1 to 3 years of life, you're also decreasing the quality of life prior to death. So it's like, unfortunately, we're at a very, very difficult point in history, and it's gonna be rough, but hopefully it's gonna have a nice rebound, like a nice V formation.
Yeah, the way I usually think about things is because we're advancing, we're becoming such a smart civilization, you would think that we're going to live longer, that we're taking care of ourselves better, that medicine is a lot more precise now and we don't have to be so invasive like, IR now instead of like having open procedures. So I would think the opposite, but then when you look at this study, and, this is not shocking because you can tell the way people take care of themselves. Like, we need...
Yeah, like life expectancy it's cool to look at because when you look at all the numbers and all these stats, this is going to be the largest single year decline in the last 40 years. As the lowest life expectancy estimated since 2003.
Yeah.
So we're going back to like the 2003 numbers. Yeah, there is a pandemic. Yeah, it is going to have a giant effect on it. It's going to, be detrimental, but it's something we have to live through and go through, and then we'll see how 2021 comes out and 2022 comes out, because 2020, like I said, the estimates are saying that people are living short lives, right? But that is during an emergency, during a pandemic. So we'll see how people react, what they learn from this pandemic, and how they move forward in the coming years.
And how we bounce back. By the way, I thought my Adobe Audition crashed there. I was going to tell you, hey, let's restart the podcast. But it's working. So what's going on? So the average life expectancy in 2019 was 77.48 years for the average American from birth to death. That shortened by 1.13 years. That's the average. So that's one of the largest single declines in life expectancy that we've seen in the past 40 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like for Blacks, the researchers project their life expectancy would be shortened by 2.1 years to 72.78 years, and for Latinos by 3.05 years to 78.77. That's crazy. Your life as an African American, as a Black person, has the potential to be decreased by 2 years. That's insane, man.
Yeah.
That's especially like if you're like a grandparent and you have grandkids, that's it's sad to see, especially Latinos down by 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, and then this just shows you how like you have these comorbidities, you don't take care of yourself because you take life, lightly, or not, I don't want to say lightly, but lighter. And you're okay with eating out, you're okay with not exercising, you're okay with improper nutrition because if you're in your 40s or 50s or 30s, you're still at that age where you could kind of take a little bit of a hit, and still be able to like rebound and come back and still be strong and healthy. But as age goes on, these comorbidities, these health issues, they come to rise more quickly.
Yep.
And then you're playing catch up. And once you're playing catch up with the disease, it's a lot harder to manage, a lot harder to control instead of controlling it right off the bat. And unfortunately, now you throw in a pandemic, you throw in a brand new virus, and we're not sure how the virus 100% works, why it's targeting certain people, why it's so detrimental. We can't get the exact treatment options right. The vaccine's there, but it's not for everybody, and there's got to be different treatment option that we're hopefully going to have in the future, or hopefully this virus does die down eventually. And you throw this into the mix of all these comorbidities, all these health issues, and our body just can't take it. And then if our body can't take it, guess what? We may have one body. Then that's basically the end of our lives, man.
Yeah, the way I see it is you have this one body as a tool and you're embodied in it. You breathe, you live through it. So you might as well make it a good body in a way, and you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So overall, this gap between like blacks and whites is projected to widen by 40%. So from 3.6 to 5 years, that's the evidence that are that's showing that what disease disparity is causing. So is it a rate? Remember how we talked about the whole racial thing and whether we should be adjusting medications? Is it back to this question where we should have different, I don't want to say outcomes, different measures for different races? Or is it the whole minority thing? People are not getting the same, have different financial struggles, and we should kind of close the gap on that.
I think it's definitely the health disparities way.
Yeah.
In my prior job before, working here in California, majority of my patients were predominantly African American, like a good chunk. I want to say like anywhere from like 60-70%. And they don't look the healthiest. Some of them unfortunately have the short end of the stick where they are healthy, but their genetics are causing them to have heart failure and things like that. There's a small portion of that, but majority of my prior patients were African Americans, a lot of Hispanics. We did have white people as well, but the greater number of them were either Hispanic or black, and that just kind of shows you that there's some kind of it's stemming from somewhere, right? It's not like a racist culture where we're treating whites over blacks. I feel like we're past that part already. Yeah. It's something in their lives that's causing them to get sick at an earlier rate, and that probably is going to be, my best opinion, is going to be probably education.
Yeah.
Because if you live in a low socioeconomic place, what's the first thing to suffer is basically violence, poor households, so where the father's not there or the mother's not there, where they have a poor family structure, and education, right? That suffer because if you're poor, yeah, you can go to school still if you're poor, but you're going to take a giant hit on like your household interaction, your how your family functions, right? Because let's say you're barely making ends meet and your mom and dad always work. Like they both work nights, or one works nights, one works days, and you only see them for maybe 2 or 3 hours of every day. That's going to have an impact on how you grow up, and how you live. Why? Because school does teach one thing, but school doesn't teach everything. And a lot of your knowledge you get from your parents, and you get from watching your parents do things, especially when you're growing up.
It's habit forming.
Yeah, and they provide education for you in certain aspects. They allow you to look outside the box because, a lot of things that we learn in school, or not, I want to say a lot, but some of the things that we learn in school, we can kind of disprove, or our parents kind of disproved for us, right? And we kind of learn more by example than anything else. So they're missing that aspect, and that obviously plays a role in this whole education thing. And plus, if your parents aren't home and they're not putting that reinforcement in where you have to go to school, yeah, you're going to ditch class. You're not going to, go to school very often.
Yeah.
Like for my example, like I used to ditch class quite a bit because my mom worked nights, so she was asleep during the day for the most part. So if somebody calls, she doesn't always pick up, or she doesn't really see me going to school, right? I walked, and then my dad works during the day, so he can't answer any phone calls. So I was like the perfect opportunity.
Perfect environment, man.
So if I didn't feel like going to school one day, guess what? I didn't have to go to school, and I would deal with the consequence when I get home, right? And plus I had the benefit of mom didn't speak very good English, so I could just kind of bullshit whatever voicemail was left on the phone, as long as I came home at the right time where, it's expected for me to come. So that's just for me. And I just somebody that doesn't have any kind of reinforcement, in the house where they have the parents aren't the best, and there's violence going on in a family, or there's drugs going on in a family. Like, you're gonna succumb to that, and you're not gonna go to school. Why would you go to school? Because you're a kid, you don't want to go to school. You're basic. If every kid had a choice to go to school, not everybody would not want to go to school. Yeah. So that all plays a role, like the family dynamics, the education, the schooling, and of course, like I said before, it's all stemming from like social economics for the most part. So that's why maybe like people have some ideas of like a universal income would not be the worst idea, but it could go both ways. It's just a giant complex issue to solve that hopefully, ideally, would get better over time. And I want to say it has gotten better over time, except we're in like a very big pandemic, so that's probably going to skew the stats a little bit. But I feel like in general, we are doing a good job as a whole society to kind of level the playing field for everybody, for the minorities. But I just feel like it's not happening quick enough, and I don't really have a solution to speed it up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no solutions to it. The way I kind of see it too is you mentioned that habit forming is not only for the disease process, but it's also habits that you have with lifestyle changes, with the way you grow up, and it all affects everything. Because if you look at the feedback loop of a habit, right, it's routine, reward, trigger, and your brain doesn't know right from wrong, right, what kind of habit it is, and you just keep on forming those habits, whether it's ditching school or whether it's eating that specific type of food, or whether your mom taught you how to be more violent, or she didn't teach you how to have manners. Like it all plays. It all goes for full circle, man. So that's why I appreciate. I don't think my parents were very super self-aware where they taught me how to do all these things. I feel like I learned it myself. But shout out to all the great parents that teach their kids self-awareness and how to like cope properly and have these positive emotional outlets.
Yeah. Like habits are super hard to start and maintain, but I feel like they're even harder to break. I feel like breaking a habit is harder than starting a habit, because for you to break a habit, you have to consciously be aware of like your because you reach a point where your body just naturally wants to do these things, right? Like eat junk food, like it's okay to, like if you eat a lot of junk food, your body's always gonna crave junk food. You're always gonna go for that junk food, right? So it's hard to tell your body to say no, because you're mentally craving it and you're physically craving it, right? Compared to like somebody that, let's say, doesn't make their bed every morning, right? It's easier to start making your bed every morning compared to like breaking a habit.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can remind yourself to do the bed, and then you do it, right? Compared to having to break a habit where you have to fight against your body, your will,
Yeah.
And then when you're starting a habit, you're starting something new. So your body doesn't really have like it's not really rejecting it as harshly as it is when you're breaking a habit.
No, you're right. I actually looked something online here called the habit testing. So one, of course, you need self-awareness, correct? You need to identify this habit, and you have to find what am I habitually doing, right? Once you identify it, you have to understand the commonalities, right? What is this habit causing me to do? How is it making me feel? What are the consequences, right? Because if you tell yourself, hey, I don't want to eat late at night, but for some reason you're off work, you just tend to eat late at night, you have this double-edged sword where you knew what you wanted to do, you still didn't do it. Now you woke up and you felt like shit, right? And then the last thing goes, you have to modify this, right? You have to adapt to the flow of what you actually want to do and align yourself, and you have to learn it, of course, yeah.
Yeah, that cause and effect model, it's very nice to look at if you're one of those people that like stress eats, that it's hard to catch yourself, but once you do, you're just like, damn, I can't believe I'm eating because I'm stressed. But especially like with nurses, a lot of times, we get nurses that snack at night. Why? Because you're running around, you're stressed, and then what does that quick carb do, or that chocolate, get you dopamine, makes you feel good, makes you feel happy. So that's hard to catch yourself. And even I do that at work too when I have a stressful day.
Like those Hershey chocolates in the freaking cart.
Right, and I'm running around a lot. I'm just like, damn, I'm gonna have a piece of chocolate. It makes you feel like a little bit better, and that's literally what stress eating is.
Yeah,
is you're eating it not because like you want to, not because you're hungry, not because you're craving that. It's because you want a break from that stress. Yeah. You want to break that chain reaction of you being stressed, and that gives you a little bit more of like a better mood basically, and that's literally stress eating. Because some of us like me, I tell myself I'm not gonna eat it late at night, and I still eat it late at night. I'm not stressed on my off days. I still eat it late at night. That's just poor willpower. I tell myself I'm not gonna eat late at night, and then somebody brings like like a brownie. I'm just like, told myself I was gonna eat late, but there's a brownie
Here
here.
it is.
Not gonna be a brownie tomorrow, so I might as well just eat it today. That's just poor willpower. That's all that is compared to like stress eating.
It's also like, it sucks because at work you're stressed out. So eating that piece of Hershey or that little chocolate kind of just changes your emotional state temporarily. It makes you feel that much better than you already are. And that's what's so addicting about it, because you could just like reach with your hands and take something in your mouth and change your emotional state just like that.
It's so damn
It's
good.
almost addicting. It's weird. Last thing about the whole life expectancy, it's crazy because we are this dominant country, United States of America, but yet when it comes to life expectancies, we're ranking number 43. Like we're way down on the totem pole, and we're this super advanced country. Like we should start taking care of ourselves or start finding out ways where we could increase our life expectancy. That'd be great. Imagine if America figured out how to live longer and happier. Imagine how that would look, because we are this global economy where GDP is amazing, but yet we're suffering in the healthcare sector, and also with with death, man. We're dying early.
Even with diabetes, we're very high on like the diabetes list. So if you just look up like Google like percentage of diabetes by country, we're ranked in the 40s. Compared to we're actually ranked 43, and compared to the major countries, only people that are in front of us is basically Egypt's at 10, and then you have Saudi Arabia at 14, Qatar's at 60, Mexico's at 20, and next major country is us at 30. Everybody else, Germany, China, all the major countries, Russia, they're all below us. Poland,
Yeah.
they're all below us. So diabetes is definitely has been ramping up. And we should cover one day how McDonald's, because McDonald's wasn't always the United States, right? Like it got founded at some point in time. I wonder, after the creation of McDonald's and fast food, how much has that increased diabetes statistically?
Yeah, they'd be hard to find though, man.
I don't think so. I think it'd be pretty easy. I think it'd be easy to find. Just nobody talks about it because McDonald's is just so powerful and so good, so delicious.
Yeah.
Because we had McDonald's once in a while. We had McDonald's like last month.
We had it last week because we were out on our
Oh yeah, we
trip.
were last week.
That was the only thing that was open, and I believe I got a chicken sandwich.
Did you? Yeah, I got a McChicken, spicy McChicken. That was
Went
good.
down. See, no regrets, right?
Yeah, guys. And I remember last episode we talked a little bit about the decreased amount of COVID-19 patients, and somebody actually mentioned, because we were talking a little bit of smack about it. We're basically saying that it's crazy how drastically these COVID cases dropped just basically by having a new president in charge, right?
Yes.
So somebody brought up the point saying that, hey, it's not the change in administration that brought this COVID-19 cases down. It's because statistics are showing that the ICU rates are down in hospitals. So me and Matt did some digging, and we actually looked at some information from December 30th of 2020, and the ICU capacity was at 88%. And
Make sure you know that this is just in California.
just in California, not United States wide. And then look, so December 30th, 2020, ICU capacity in Cali was 88%. And as of January 21st, the capacity is 89%. So it doesn't seem like any ICU capacity has decreased, but the COVID numbers looks like they are downtrending. I haven't looked at them today.
Cases, yeah.
The cases are downtrending, but I haven't personally looked at them today. But this still shows that it's within like a little bit less than a month, ICU capacity hasn't really changed much.
Yeah.
And I actually went on. We have a link down there for you guys if you guys want to check it out. It's like a COVID tracker radar where it shows you by county in California how much of these ICUs are filled, and the majority of them are in the high 80s and 90s.
Yeah, Los Angeles, where we work, our ICU capacity is 93% right now.
Yeah.
Like, we're always stacked. We're always fighting for a code bed.
Right.
We're always trying to downgrade anybody possible that we can.
Yeah. So regarding California, like our numbers really aren't down. We still have just as sick patients this week compared to last week, compared to the week before, and all that. It doesn't seem like, at least our ICU is still packed. We still have very sick COVID patients. We still have ECMOs going on. We still have CRTs going on. And it doesn't seem like there's any kind of a lessening of COVID-19 in our hospital.
Yeah, so like we took the whole, I think the issue was here that we didn't show this data. We kind of just took like a political spin on it. So I understand when people are upset that we just kind of like look at politics and we say, hey, this, that, like we have our reasons or opinions and why we kind of share things, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at this, and if based on the governor, he wanted 15% capacity always to be there to that threshold. That means that the capacity should be at 75% before we start making any changes. So that's why we kind of scratched ourselves on the head and said, well, if the capacity is still at 89, it hasn't really changed, why open back things up? But they're projecting that it's going to go down. So,
Yeah.
you just never know.
You never know. Like, according to the stats, cases are going down. So eventually, the hospitals are going to follow suit, where we're going to have less COVID positive ICU patients, less med surge patients, less tele patients. There's less of COVID-19 in general. But we'll see when that comes. I said, I think we probably still have a few months. I mean, like the case count, we know those numbers could be skewed. We're not saying they are or anything like that, but it's easier for numbers to be skewed on on a line graph compared to actually witnessing it in the hospital.
Yeah, and I went to go get my fit test done. Fit test is basically putting the mask on and making sure I could, not get any virus particles in my mouth or whatever, or not, I'm sorry, in my nose when I'm breathing things in. I failed it anyway because I have to wear a PAPR. But when I talked to the PA, she told me that they're actually testing a lot less. So she said that the CDC changed a little bit of the guidelines and they're not like testing everybody like they were.
Yeah.
So if there's a reduction in who you're testing and now you're only testing people that show symptoms, not testing anybody that wishes to be tested, now things are going to change a little bit. Now there's a reduction in testing, which should show a correlation of decreasing cases, right?
Yeah.
So I hate that there's so much variables being put into place that I can't present somebody the data for what it is. It's hard because there's so many variables changing. Yes, I can say that the governor's not making sense based on the data, but there's also these other things that are happening now. It's hard to create an educated guess, but we're trying our best here, and this is the way that we feel about the situation.
Yeah, I'm looking at these numbers right now, these case counts, and they're like 50% lower than they were last week. Like, here's the January 29th, new cases, 19,000. And compare it to, let's say, January 15th, so 10 days or 14 days ago, 2 weeks ago, they're at 40,000. So it's like a 50% drop in case count. Like, is it because, like you said, if they're testing less, that'll be your rationale for it, because they're obviously not testing the same amount of people, right? Because how do we cut cases in half within a matter of 2 weeks? Like, how does that happen? We didn't introduce anything. I don't think the vaccine is that quick in action, right?
Yeah.
Like, we haven't vaccinated a majority of people. How did these cases get dropped by 50%? Logically thinking, it would be because less testing, right?
Yeah. You know what I also find sad, man? When it comes to this whole vaccine rollout, I don't understand why we didn't vaccinate the people that are most at risk. That makes logical sense for me, right? This makes
Like elderly you're thinking about?
the elderly, yeah. Like, we don't know how bad these nursing homes are.
rationale-
Supposedly, it's really bad.
So the rationale for that is why they vaccinated medical professionals first is because if an X amount of us get sick,
Yeah,
There should be nobody
you're
there
risking the
taking
healthcare system.
exactly,
yes.
yeah. So yeah, you're kind of pushing, not really pushing the major solution, because like we've noticed, like we've said multiple times, it's the elderly that are getting really sick, and those are the ones that are most susceptible to COVID-19. But looking at like a longevity picture, it's probably more rational to vaccinate healthcare providers, first responders, because in this point in time, I don't want to sound like a dick, but we are more valuable to a society than, like, you want to say, the elderly.
Yeah.
From like a kind of like a socioeconomic standpoint, and if this pandemic were to extend and get real bad, right? Because, first of all, we are the ones doing this job. We are the ones that are dealing with COVID-19 patients on a daily. So our chance of getting sick is higher than everybody else's. You think about that theoretically. And yeah, that's basically it. This kind of sound kind of shady. Like, in a perfect world, we would have enough vaccines to first vaccinate healthcare professionals, and at the same time also vaccinate the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
But we don't live in a perfect world, and that's kind of how it works. And also, if you want to hype up a good vaccine, you would most likely give it to healthier individuals first, see how they do, and then give it to the elderly. Because let's just say we're having reactions to it. We're having side effects. Imagine how much high side effects are going to be for the elderly, because they already are a little bit more immunocompromised. Their organs aren't the best, right? So this is kind of like a giant big test for the most part, and I'm okay with it. Like, we got to do experiments. It's science. You got to do what you got to do. But basically, why they did this is, one, because we are healthcare professionals, so we have to be alive, and two, if our bodies can't handle it, their bodies aren't gonna be able to handle it either.
Straight business, man.
Figure it all out, guys.
Yeah. Figured it out on the show, man. Yeah, you make a very good point. And I understand because of like the, what's it called, availability of vaccines, we just have to prioritize somebody. And in this case, it was the healthcare worker.
Yeah.
So there's this little news section that I found here, but we're not going to talk too much about it because the research study was private, meaning we had to pay for it. Peter and I aren't in freaking college, so we don't have access to all these cool research studies. If you guys want to give us your account, sure, we could look up some studies. But it was really fascinating because they created this intelligent DNA nanogel where it targets FEN1, which is flap endonuclease 1. It's an enzymatic biomarker that is highly overexpressed as cancer cells and isn't in normal counterparts. So this is basically targeted cancer therapy where the gel, the nanoparticles, are able to target specific cells and not kill other healthy cells based on this biomarker, which, as you know, most chemo drugs are, at risk of killing both type of cells, which is bad.
So this actually destroys it or just identifies it?
It seems like it's highly targeted. So it targets specific cancer cells. So remember, of course, I wasn't able to look into the study, so I don't know what cancer has this enzymatic biomarker.
Yeah, so I'm reading it here real quick. So the brand new strategies introduced in the current report could break new ground in designing drug carriers for eliminating unwanted side effects of chemotherapeutic agents and live cell probes for cancer risk assessment, diagnosis, and prognosis. So it's for assessment, diagnosis, and prognosis. Interesting. So right now, what it seems like they're doing with this is just identification, because like you said, Matt, before, the FEN1 biomarker is overexposed in cancer cells, right? So that's actually really good for identification, right? Because if it's super exposed in the cancer cells and underexposed in regular cells, we'll know what cells are cancerous compared to the good ones. Because a lot of times with cancer, guys, it's hard to identify what cell has cancer and what cell is cancerous and what cell isn't, because they look the same, because they mutate so quickly and so effectively, especially in like the earlier stages. It's hard to recognize, right? But this is actually beautiful, because if this is overexposed, then we could easily target this and say, hey, this is overexposing FEN1. This is a cancer cell.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like the organ on chip. And I believe when we interviewed Dr. Ricky, right, he was talking about that he's working on cancer therapy that does exactly this. Yeah. But it's in its like early stages. They're still trying to figure out whether, some kind of intelligent nano cell chip or whatever it is could deliver therapy to that specific cell and destroy the cancer where it is,
This would be perfect, because like maybe we might not use this for like destroying the cancer cell, but this gives us the ability to be a lot more accurate with medication that we have. So instead of doing like a wide dose of chemo or a wide dose of radiation, you might be able to target this better.
Yeah, same thing with like the speaking of diagnosis, imagine when you have a PET scan, right? A PET scan just usually radiates you up and you see this concentration of where your white blood cells are. Imagine having something like this where it's less invasive. I don't know, maybe you charge some kind of iodine particle on it. I don't know how they do things. And you're able to identify where the inflammation, where the cancer is located, and then have specific targeted tools for whatever, you're doing to fight off that cancer.
Right. Well, it'd be cool too to see if this is possible. I'm not sure how they are or how far that with cancer research, but maybe since they could locate this, looks like fairly accurately, maybe they could create medications that can target this FEN1 biomarker.
Yeah.
Maybe be able to mutate that or be able to do something with that and destroy that. So maybe they could create this medication where it just affects an overabundance, overexposed FEN1 enzyme. This could be a revolutionary, but it'd be cool to have Dr. Ricky back on and see if he knows anything about this, because we know nanoparticles exist. We're able to super target certain cells instead of the widespread damage that we used to cause back in the day with our basic chemo, right? As science moves on, we're able to figure out things more accurately, more quickly, and we're also able to target certain cells more accurately, more quickly. So this is breathtaking stuff for cancer, because as we know, as we age, the older you get, the higher risk you have for cancer. And how amazing would it be for cancer to kind of be more of like a diabetes kind of chronic disease compared to being life and death, because when you hear somebody say diabetes, you're like, okay, they have diabetes, that sucks, but they could still live quite a bit through it.
Yeah.
There's kids that have juvenile diabetes that they live normal life. They live to be 80, 70 years old and without any issues. But when you hear the word cancer, you really think of like limited of time.
Yeah, worst case scenario.
Yeah, worst case scenario. And you already, as soon as you hear the word cancer, you already think that person's gonna die before they should. So imagine we're at a point where cancer is just like a chronic disease that we unfortunately we get,
And it's manageable.
what's manageable and it's treatable. And yeah, even with diabetes, life expectancy does drop by quite a bit, but with a lot of cancers, your life expectancy drops a lot more than with diabetes. So imagine if you could put that in the same box with like hypertension and diabetes, where you do have a shorter life expectancy, but it's not as drastic and as intense as it is with cancer.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And
Or even if you could figure out how to decrease the side effects, because a lot of the side effects people experience with cancer is because of the medication that we give them, not the cancer itself. The cancer destroys your body within you, inside you, but the medication that we give you also destroy your body.
Yeah, chemo is where you're, losing hair and everything else that's happening. You're feeling like shit. I'm also wondering, because remember those sprays I had from Poland? It was a doctor from Hungary, and he created nanotechnology, and specifically this nanotechnology was able to activate the telomeres on the DNA and make them longer, and that in return saved that DNA, saved that tissue, and actually helped with like cellular regeneration. And he was locked up for a certain amount of time, and I believe he had to patent the technology as a cosmetic, because if it was as medicine, the pharmaceutical companies of Europe would kind of go after him, or whatever country he was in.
And you probably need a prescription stuff too then.
Exactly. So there, it was sold as a cosmetic. Like, I believe I put it when I got like when I went to the club and I got my eyelid busted. Like I kept spraying it and get stitches, and like my eye completely healed, where you just see a small scar. So we'll see where this technology of nanoparticles advances in the future.
We should do a research. We should do some research on that product that you have, like some deep research, like find the mechanism of action and if that's actually any kind of validity and stuff like that. Because that'd be cool to know. Because I use that spray for like my scar here, and I mean it didn't really do anything, but like I said, it helped your eyelid.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of research I want to do. First, I want to actually tackle the whole face mask thing. I want to look more into everything that's happening now. Yeah. So anyways, last thing we're going to talk about is the whole the whole Robinhood and GameStop situation. And piggybacking off that, Google removed 100,000 negative reviews from the stock trading app Robinhood off the Google Play Store. And Wednesday to Thursday of what's today's week? We are the week of January 24th to the 30th. So that app that you could trade stocks on, and I own it myself, it dropped from 4 stars to 1 star. So Google went ahead and just removed all the bad reviews. Yeah. And this just shows you that this goes beyond the whole, they removed some reviews. This goes to the point where our voice continuously gets censored on the internet, and we talk about it all the damn time. And now we're seeing it full circle, whether it's with Twitter. In this situation, it's continuously happening, and the small people are always getting screwed over. Yeah. And it was never about left versus right or black versus right. It was always about this. It was always about us versus them, and that's these large corporations that are turning our Bill of Rights to terms and conditions, terms of service. And with terms of service, able to do whatever the hell they want. Yeah. So I'm sure Peter could go into the backbone of what exactly happened with that stock and the whole Reddit of Wall Street bets.
Yeah, I feel like I've been talking about this for like the last like 5 days, and I'm definitely on the hype train. So we'll see what comes out of this. But basically, what happened, if you guys don't know, I know during this release, I'm sure you guys probably done a lot of research because this is going to be released quite a bit after the actual happening of this event. But basically, there was some hedge funds that were betting against a company called GameStop. If you remember GameStop from back in the day, I mean they're still around. They just don't do very well anymore because everyone shops on Amazon, buys stuff online. No one really goes to a store to buy games anymore. And their business model was built on people buying and sharing games right in their stores. So the company obviously wasn't doing the best. Their stock market shares, their not priced very highly, and people are expecting them to go down, right? So these hedge funds are betting that price is going to go down. So when this happens, they basically call it a short, where the company borrows a amount of stock, sells it for a price, and then buys it back again for a cheaper price, and then returns that stock to where it got it from. So it makes a lot of money, but the way they make money is based on a company doing bad, right? Which is pretty shitty to look at. Like, if you guys remember Tesla had a lot of short sellers like last year before that, and people were against Tesla. Like, they wanted to price to drop. That's when they make their money off of. So it's people make a lot of money on it. Is it a ethical business model? Probably not. Like, you're betting on someone's failure, basically.
Yeah.
So you're gonna, if you're betting on a company's failure, you want that company to drop to zero, ideally, or go bankrupt, because then you make a shit ton of money, right? And then when you look at it from like an outside perspective, not just a hedge fund perspective, when a company fails, they lose jobs, people lose money, but people are able to profit off those losses. And that's kind of what's happening with GameStop. So a few smart people on Wall Street Bets off Reddit, they realized that, hey, this company's getting shorted so much, where there's not enough shares to go around to sell and buy back to return, right? So these guys came out with an idea where we're gonna keep buying these shares, because these hedge funds are forced to buy shares. So if they're buying the shares and we're buying the shares, price is automatically gonna go up. And there's not enough shares for everybody. If there's not enough shares for everybody, everyone's trying to buy them, right? So prices are gonna skyrocket. And that's what happened. It went from like $30 or $40 to like 300, like 290 within a few days, just because there wasn't enough shares to go around. And these hedge funds have to return these stocks at a certain day. It's like expiration date. So they have to buy up an X amount of shares to return from where they initially borrowed it from. And, like I said, Reddit found that out, and they're basically battling it out. They're trying to raise the price. So these hedge funds and these companies that were banking on this company failing now have to pay millions, if not billions of dollars extra to kind of keep moving with their company.
And the dilemma here is that hedge funds can do that. Hedge funds can kind of pick and choose who gets, kind of thrown underneath the bus where they're losing money. But when the average Joe, the ordinary people, we the people, notice this and we start buying stocks, all of a sudden we can't do that. We can't play the same game that the hedge funds are doing. So they can do that. But if we start doing that within 48 hours, look what happened. They did not give us the ability to buy that stock Friday morning. Yeah. And Robinhood whoever is responsible of this, where they stopped us from buying a stock just for the sake of maybe saving a hedge fund or whatever the case might be, whatever this was illegal. I think there has to be some consequences, some liability. I think the CEO of Barstool Sports even said that somebody should be going to jail for this.
So like this all is basically just revolves around Wall Street. So Wall Street makes billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's a giant craze. It's companies making billions of dollars. And what we learned today, or not today, or these past couple of days, is Wall Street's okay with low restrictions,
open market,
the rules that we have now. They're okay with that as long as it benefits them. And if you're in a free economy, a free market, both sides should be able to do basically whatever they want with these stocks, right? So this just shows you that when Wall Street is not getting its way, they have the power to turn things their way. Because what do we see happening? So these hedge funds are losing billions of dollars. So they basically told Robinhood and a lot of platforms, hey, stop allowing people to buy GME, GameStop. So Robinhood said, okay, we're going to stop the buying of GameStop. But you guys could still sell. So why not just say, hey, we're going to halt all trading. You can't buy, you can't sell. They didn't do that. They just said you could still sell, but you can't buy. So if I can't buy it, the only thing I can do is sell, what's going to happen? If I'm nervous, I'm going to sell, right? And that caused the price to go down. But when I was doing some research, regarding this situation, is the trading that was going on during this time where buying was restricted, the price plummeted by like 50%, right? Which is expected. But the word on the street is that these hedge funds were just selling GME stock back and forth between other companies. So they were never really got rid of any of their shares. They were just buying it back and forth to manipulate the numbers so the price could drop, people could get scared and think it's just over. Things like that. So it's crazy to look at when the stock market isn't going the way a certain amount of people want it to go. they're able to have this kind of influence over it and turn it their way. And this is complete market manipulation. And this is something that is illegal. You can't manipulate the market. Same way you can't do pumps and dumps. That's illegal. And the crazy thing about this is by them stopping the buying of GameStop, they probably saved themselves millions, if not billions of dollars, because the price dropped and whoever sold it, they were able to scoop out those shares. But it's crazy because the amount that they're going to pay in fees from going to court is still a lot less than they would have lost if they just would have resumed trading. And that's what they're banking on, and that's what they're going to go with. I mean, that's a smart option if any investor standpoint. Hey, screw it. Let's just sway the market in our favor, and we'll just deal with the fines, because our losses from fines and court fees are going to be a lot less than the amount we're going to lose due to these average Joe traders over here.
And because you made that statement, I hope the government doesn't pass up on this rare opportunity to genuinely protect us, because we are the victims of this abuse from large corporations where, they could do that, but we can't. And that's a freaking problem. So I hope
somebody should go to jail.
Yeah, and I hope our government stands up for this shit, man. I hope that they just don't look the other way, because that's where all the money is. In 2008, Obama bailed out Wall Street. They had their freaking bailout. And now, we just got to say, no, man, this is enough, man. They're stealing. And even look at Robin's Hood commercial where, I forgot what the quote was, but they're doing the exact opposite of whatever commercial they released a month ago.
And the app's called Robinhood. Robinhood, took away from the rich, gave to the poor, and they did the exact fucking opposite.
They stole money from their own clients to cover the hedge funds.
Yeah. It's crazy times, dude. And it just shows you if you have the money and the power, you could just consistently keep winning. If you get to a certain part of life where you have a certain amount of fuck you money, that just shows you can't lose. It's very hard for you to lose, especially this. If I'm losing billions of dollars and I could just make a few phone calls and say, hey, stop me losing money, and you just stop losing money. That's crazy, dude. So much for free. This is not a. I hope Robinhood. Honestly, I'm thinking about pulling out my money out of Robinhood if this doesn't go according to plan. I don't know where else I'm going to put it. But Robinhood is just so easy to use, so user friendly. Where it's like what else are you gonna use? But somebody should definitely go to jail. This shouldn't just happen. It shouldn't happen. It's ridiculous how it all played out into the hedge fund's hands too.
Yeah, and we're so aware of this, of what happens, and the corporations that we say this kind of stuff. We know what happens. This is just another playbook, man. So hopefully our show and everything we talk about, and sometimes maybe it's not the best, maybe sometimes you don't believe in our opinion fully, you're like, damn, these guys are a little bit cuckoo, and that's okay. But we want you to take the red pill and see things for what it is, and then formulate your own opinion. As we always say, take things with a grain of salt.
Yeah. And watch The Matrix too. If you guys haven't seen The Matrix, you should watch The Matrix.
We should put that on a shirt design, dude.
Matrix?
Grain of salt.
Grain of salt?
And sprinkle it in there with our hands, or
unless you're hypertensive.
Yeah. Then you better go
sodium restriction.
Huh?
Yeah. Unless you're sodium restriction.
Sprinkle some potassium there. Yeah. Alrighty, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. We talked about the U.S. life expectancy, the reduction due to COVID. Talked about some ICU capacities, some DNA nanogel, and we then kind of bounced around with Robinhood and GameStop with what's happening. Thank you guys for tuning in for another beautiful episode of Cup of News, episode 35. Appreciate y'all your love and support. Chat next week.
Have an amazing day, guys. Peace.